You recently wrote a piece called Afghanistan about his Afghanistan policy. Could you talk to us about that? What's your message in this piece?
Well, 20 years, I mean, just think about it. 20 years, thousands of people dead, $2 trillion of public money, our money, spent in Afghanistan to defeat people, and then the United States leaves and turns over the country to the people we were told were evil and should not, and had to be destroyed and had to be run out. This was the first casualty of 9/11. I had forgotten that the congressional vote to authorize the war against Afghanistan happened just a few days. It was September 14th. It was just 3 days. And I think that was done purposefully to make sure that no one had time to think while the country was still in shock, while people were still angry, where it was unlikely that any voices of opposition would be heard. Only one member of Congress, Barbara Lee, voted against it. And for 20 years, we were told, first of all, none of the 9/11 hijackers were from Afghanistan or in Afghanistan. They hatched the plot in European countries, Germany, among other places. Bin Laden may have been there, but he had quickly left. So the goal of ramming this through so fast was to make sure that it happened, that the US would continue its policies, a project of new American century of basically the United States interfering more forcefully in the affairs of that region, including sending troops, having a physical military presence in the region. And after all this time, and that $2 trillion, that all went to the military industrial complex. So they won. They absolutely did win. The Raytheons and McDonnell Douglases and so forth. Our defense secretary came straight from Raytheon to the Pentagon, and they waived the rules to, which were supposed to require a period of time where between working for a defense contractor and going to the Defense Department, but they've dispensed even with the pretense, apparently. And so the US is there for 20 years. Now, most people, after all this time, the average American did not see the point in these, the forever wars. Iraq followed soon after, of course, and that was 18 years ago. Donald Trump, I think, peeled enough votes away from Hillary Clinton in those swing states by saying he would end the forever wars. And he began the process, which continued under Biden. I think leaving Afghanistan is a good thing to have done. I'm a little concerned that they are doing it in order to target China, however, so that's not something I would want to celebrate. But I think the departure made the news because of the way in which it was handled, the fact that it was managed so badly that people saw, people were hanging from a plane. I'm assuming they couldn't detach themselves before the plane took off and fell and died. But to see people swarming the airport, to see the lack of well-managed process brought it back into the news. And then you had people attacking Biden from the right, saying that it was a bad thing to leave Afghanistan, when that is not the case at all. But the fact that the US departed, this great failure, shows you the ultimate failure of these policies. We were told that Afghanistan had an army of 300,000 men. It did not, it never did. As soon as they stopped sending money, and all those troops, by the way, were paid for by the US. So this alleged Afghanistan army was not really in existence. Troops had been leaving, they hadn't been paid for months, and they just disappeared. And the Taliban, who we were told had to be defeated, took over very quickly. The US puppet president, every leader of Afghanistan has been a US puppet in the last 20 years. He left the country with, I think it was $170 million. He had to leave some of the money. I mean, it was cash, actual cash, that he had to leave at the airport because he couldn't stuff it all into his plane. So this is a failure of, I don't want to criticize those of us who want peace, but it shows that we don't have the ear of the people like we should. I mean, it was very difficult after 9/11, of course, because people were told that this is what we had to do. But during that time, that the money was funded over and over and over again. And even these so-called progressives in Congress who may be progressive on domestic issues, they keep voting for this defense spending. Defense spending is now 60% of all discretionary spending. And it is literally why we can't have nice things, why we can't pay for everything else. We're told, how are you going to pay for that? Where's that money going to come from? Well, I think it should come from the Defense Department. It could easily be cut in half. We could close those military bases, end these forever wars, and we could have healthcare, education, infrastructure, housing. There shouldn't be any homeless people there. No one should be without health care. No one should have to be gouged by these horrible insurance companies. All of those things could be done if we did not have this continued bipartisan political support for the military-industrial complex. And it does bother me that people were upset more about the optics of the American departure than about this 20-year-long catastrophe for people in Afghanistan. Many thousands of Afghanistan civilians were killed by the US. And on their way out the door, there was a suicide bombing at the airport. It killed American service people, among others. And they claimed they got the terrorist who did instead. Who was killed? A family with little kids. So the US left the way it came in.
Yeah, that's right.